In this video, I will be turning Minecraft into Elden Ring using mods to add brand new combat, new mechanics like improved looting, item stats, leveling, and magic spells, new enemies, and amazing boss fights, all wrapped together with RPG style elements and features. This is a part 2 to my original video I made a few months ago. This is the best Elden Ring mod pack made in Minecraft, and here's how I made it. Firstly, we'll be overhauling the combat system in game through the addition of a fair few mods that will modify the mechanics and fighting segments of the game, and some that add some new combat based items. The epic fight mod is going to be at the core of our mod pack. This is purely because it transforms the vanilla combat system in a way that makes it faster paced to make it feel like we're playing an RPG, exactly what we want. It will also change how many of the vanilla mobs and creatures in the game move about, and it affects their animations, making many of the enemies a lot more sinister and menacing. Bosses will be far more intense to duel using this new system, letting you dodge incoming boss attacks with strafing and rolling or dashes. There's also a series of various attack stances and styles with special attacks and strikes, as well as special abilities that are weapon based, letting us use stuns and special combos to nuke down targets. This is exactly what we need to make Minecraft into a Souls-like. Now, since the Electro Blob's Wizardry mod is not yet updated to 1.16.5, I decided to add the mod Ars Nouveau to the pack. This magic mod lets us create any spell that we desire, as well as magical artifacts. This just means that we can theoretically create any spell that we desire and craft special trinkets which we can use, and even summon magical servants to tend to our needs. This is a nice little mod that will serve as our magic system. We'll also use the Tomes mod for some more magic options. This lets us use both passive and active spells by using tomes that have 4 potential active and 3 passive spells each. These tomes have 1 active spell that you can cast and 1 passive spell that you can stack. Tomes are filled with spells by enchanting them, but you need to stack bookshelves for level 30 enchants to apply active spells upon them. The spells will however damage the tome's durability though. As for weapon enchantments and abilities, along with the new specialized stats and abilities from the epic fight mod, the lifesteal mod will be useful to add a new enchantment that will steal the life of any entity that you attack. This is based upon the enchantment level of your item, ranging from level 1 to level 5. This can be applied to all weapons and is super useful to stay alive during boss fights. Swing through grass is also super important, just to negate that annoying vanilla Minecraft feature that prevents us from attacking through grass blocks. This is just a simple mechanic change and we need to do it. Elden Ring has some very attractive armor sets. Because Minecraft's vanilla gear is fairly simple, we'll use a selection of various mods for this. The first being the Epic Knights, Shields, Armor and Weapons, a mod that will introduce many medieval themed weaponry, everything from swords, axes, maces and flails to polearms and pikes. There's also some nice shields in this mod too, although the best part are the many different armor variants that the player can wear, which look great and very Souls-like. For a little more of an extensive range of shields, we'll also use the Spartan Shields mod. This mod adds many different shield types which are based upon the vanilla ores, as well as a few brand new types, some in different shapes such as the round shields or long rectangular tower shields. The Spartan Weaponry mod is also a nice addition too, which will offer us an arsenal of weapons of assorted types, from long claymores and greatswords to katanas and sabers, daggers, clubs, warhammers, spears, halberds, lances and even longbows, all having different styles of combat and speed of attacking, and when configured correctly will pair with the epic fight mod very nicely. The mod Faz's medieval gear is also a great one I'll be adding to our mod pack. This mod will add armor sets that are very Lord of the Rings feeling, with heavy sets of gear that just look super epic in combat and just add some more variety if we didn't have enough of that already. For a large scale AAA title like Elden Ring, you should always expect a vast diverse world with a lot to see and explore. I've definitely pulled out all the stops on this part. Firstly, let's cover the terrain generation overhaul and the modifications that we've made to the world in general. The open terrain generator has finally been updated to 1.16.5. This is the best world gen mod of all time, a data driven mod that offers full world gen configuration, and it uses custom world gen presets that other players make and then share, with customizable world height, terrain noise, blocks utilized and the power to create brand new biomes and control their size and sub-features like islands and continents or custom trees, this mod is powerful, and it's really interesting as it allows for custom structures that are entirely procedurally generated. So you'll notice dungeons, villages, cities or mountains and volcanoes with custom mobs and loot within them. Our choice of preset for OTG here will be Dragora. This is a custom generator which adds 245 plus new biomes that house over 7,000 biome objects. These include brand new tree types, rocks and caves, large scale dungeons, villages, medieval cities, stranded or sunken ships and wrecks, and a few more. The custom biomes and the terrain here is amazing, and there's a lot of brand new mobs within. This also features a custom storyline which you can follow through the books, which are found in chests and they contain lore to them. You can also find treasure due to the custom loot tables. There's so much more diversity in the world using this particular preset, and it generates large scale medieval fantasy style structures to explore and plunder, definitely giving off an Elden Ring vibe when playing. And I haven't seen anyone use this preset just yet in any other videos, so it's a really unique good pick which we can start out with. I also like the Desolation mod. It's more Dark Souls feeling but very fitting nonetheless. This introduces the Charred Forest biome, which has a few different sub-variants of it. There's also 2 new mobs there to encounter and fight too. This is just generally a very dark and eerie biome, and it's definitely very reminiscent of a fantasy setting. For some procedurally generated fortresses, we'll use castle dungeons. For some surface level keeps that have a ton of mobs and loot within, with hallways and specialized rooms that let us fight in more close quarters. I also like Valhellshire's structures. This brings some new structures like abandoned buildings or dungeons that have unique decorations inside them. Many of these are classic stony style based builds with vines coursing down them, or they're built out of more rustic materials or wood, and they have many variants or styles within different biomes. This is also a really nice mod because it will spawn a lot of vanilla based mobs within the structures, just like pillagers for an example. Now, what if we find ourselves in the underground? Firstly, Wesley's roguelike dungeons mod will spawn many different themed dungeons with various mobs and bosses. You can also find things like traps within here for some more danger, with locked chests which are filled with treasure and loot. The mini bosses within here too will also be a little challenge for us to fight. Many of these are unique, and there's 15 different themed dungeons, so there's a little bit of a selection of variety here. Dungeon Crawl is a very similar mod, however. It will generate similarly looking roguelike dungeon structures that have procedurally generated layouts with randomized loot and sizes and setups. These are marked by their towers above ground, which serve as entryways with winding staircases down underground. These of course are comprised of many different levels and passages, and it's just a perfect spot for some of our creatures and foes to spawn, which I'll mention next. Lastly, the Dungeons of Exile mod will be added, which adds a special dungeon called Jigsaw. This is entered from the surface level where bosses and enemies are found and spawners must be broken. Completing such dungeons will then cause the towers above on the surface to destroy in order to mark their completion. Elden Ring is a world that's littered by creatures and monsters, some friendly, neutral, and most are just hostile and dangerous. To match this style, we're going to have to inhabit our world with some tough mobs to go head to head with. Mauzy's mobs is a perfect pick. This is because many of the bosses within this mod have specialized spells and abilities that are casted in a way that's very fitting of a Souls-like title. Now, what I mean by this is that most of these attacks, be it melee or range based, can be dodged with the rolls, strafes, or the blocks from the Epic Fight mod, meaning it will work seamlessly with our brand new combat system, which gives the player more of a purpose. Each of these bosses perform in different weird and wonderful ways that are very unique from one another. This is really cool because the player, if they have a little bit of skill and quick reflexes, can dodge and counter many of the attacks that these bosses will cast. For some more bosses, the Mutant Beast mod is another that's worth putting in here. That's because there's a bunch of terrifyingly experimental monsters that it adds. Sure, it has less of a medieval fantasy feeling to it, but these bosses make for some extremely tough engagements, and just like the previous mod, most of these abilities can be dodged or countered in some kind of way, meaning you can find these fights challenging but beatable with some skill. The Mutant Maw mod is also essential too, because it's a nice mod to have, which serves as basically an extension to the original, basically imitating a content patch to it, which adds mutant piglins and extras to flesh out our set of AI bosses and improve the original mod. The more basic mobs are a little weak in Minecraft Vanilla though, so let's add the Champions mod. We can increase the chance for some of the spawned hostile mobs to now spawn with enhanced stats, alternate abilities and better loot tables, having custom ranks, displayed health bars similar to those that bosses have, and custom particles. This means that encountering normal mobs in dungeons could be tougher when you run into stronger versions of them. Of course, when playing a game like this, we're looking for some challenge, right? Along with the Champion mod, another similar mod we'll use is Brutal Bosses. This mod brings 29 different unique bosses. These are customizable and they appear in dungeons in game. Now the best part of this is it will support our custom dungeons and structures mods in this pack too, so they'll spawn in most of those, which is really convenient. These mobs have vanilla mob appearances and they have different attributes and special abilities, like firing fireballs, summoning different mobs as minions to fight for them, throwing projectiles, and more. This basically just means that there'll be a very fitting level of threat anywhere we go. This one could have gone either in the world gen or the mobs category, but I'll just throw it in here. I'll be using the Twilight Forest mod too. Now this adds a lot of things. Firstly, the world is very visually beautiful and enchanting and extremely endearing to explore, offering some threat and adventure potential for the player, but secondly, it adds a boatload of tough mobs and bosses. Elden Ring features a lot of bosses, some tougher than others, and you can continuously stage up to the next tough boss. With the Twilight Forest, the boss progression system is super nice. It offers an achievement system that the player must follow by defeating each boss consecutively in order to unlock the next boss fight. These bosses are no pushovers too. They have real boss fight mechanics that take skill and they work super well with our combat system and are very fantasy-esque. Toad Terror is also a mod that will add some tough foes. I'm mainly adding this mod here for its mini boss, one that will spawn within swamps in a sacred ruin structure. This is a large amphibian that has a fair bit of health and it does 4 different attacks to the player, offering some nice loot as well as a cute little companion too, so why not just throw that in there. I also like the El Ender's Cataclysm mod. This mod adds challenging dungeons and special items, with the content inspired by Minecraft dungeons. In fact, it's the boss fights that I love about this one. The bosses are very similar to Mousy's mobs and they're also very challenging too, not to mention how well the mobs look visually. There's a range of different golems and guardians in both the Nether and End that have a ton of health and they're very different and have unique abilities that make them each individually tough. Spiders are slightly menacing depending whether it's day or night, but Spiders 2.0 will also make the spiders feel a bit more scary. It's definitely super spooky and more treacherous during the dungeon crawling experience when spiders are walking upside down along the walls and upon ceilings like some kind of horror monster, and with their better pathfinding, they are also a genuine threat now. Our environment is large, so we need to fill it with some passive and neutral creatures too to top this off. So for some more life in the world, my choice for this is the Better Animals Plus mod. This adds amazing new creatures both to the overworld on its upper terrain and underwater through aquatic life, totaling over 35 brand new animals that will populate our new biomes and world. This is important because we have so many different terrain generation features, which makes our world huge and very diverse, so we kind of need to populate it, and this is perfect for doing exactly that. Since Minecraft Vanilla is very boring looking, let's also overhaul the visuals and give them a huge upgrade. Firstly, Optifine is very important for us here. This is so we can generally enhance visual fidelity in Minecraft. Not only can we fine-tune graphical options for performance or beauty, we can optionally also use shaders too, which is obviously dependent on how powerful your system is, because this is already a pretty big mod pack. But the main part is that it will let us use our resource pack choice, as it gives us connected texture support and many features that resource packs just simply can't use without it. For our resource pack option to overhaul the materials in game, we'll be using the Conquest Reforged texture pack. Now this goes hand in hand with the Conquest Reforged mod that works side by side together with it. The mod adds hundreds of semi-realistic medieval fantasy style blocks and textures to the game, with over 12,000 brand new blocks with custom 3D modeled and looks to create immersive looking environments with much better looking foliage and atmospheric blocks with new particles and animations. This texture pack makes everything look dark, grainy and very fantasy-esque, exactly what we're searching for here. Next up, the Enhanced Visuals mod, for some new HUD effects to add onto the screen for a more immersive experience. This will overlay everything from blood splatters when taking damage to vision blurring and much more effects to make combat more believable and just add an extra layer of realism. Dynamic surroundings settings is also important for both visual and audible upgrades, improving many mechanics in game by adding new particles, sounds, and general visual and audible upgrades to many of the different blocks, changes in weather and components in various biomes in game to make the effects better. The RPG HUD mod will serve as our core UI system mod, improving generally how our game looks in terms of its interface and its HUD based elements. Everything from brand new health and XP bars to improved status effects and buffs displayed, and visual overlays to display the current health of targeted mobs for an example. This will make our mod pack interface just like a Souls-like. For better visual mobility and panning for the player, we'll use two different options. The first being the camera overhaul mod, which will make the game feel far more fluid during movement. It does this through adding more camera rotations to emphasize the player's movement patterns and offer better visual feedback during strafing, moving back and forth, or jumping and falling, which each pan the camera and change its pitch. The better third person mod is also crucial too, as this adds independent rotation of the camera from the player's view in third person mode, letting you do full 360-degree rotations to view your character and walk in 8 different directions without changing its rotation at all. This also still allows you to perform actions in third person with full freedom of movement. To get our mod pack to come as close as possible to the gameplay of Elden Ring, we need to use a few mods to introduce a series of similar mechanics that will mimic the gameplay slightly. Firstly, we will add 2 different mods that relate to the inventory system. The first being the InvMove mod, which simply lets you move around, jump, walk and sprint, also whilst accessing and using the inventory screen, hiding the dark tint and background around the menu as to not pause the game. We'll also toggle the keep inventory game rule for our world as to respawn the player with their loot when they die. Now, the hunger system and eating as a whole, in terms to its relation to being hungry or starving, is generally obsolete in this circumstance. That's why we'll use the Hunger Strike mod to disable this mechanic entirely, because Elden Ring isn't really typically a survival game in this same kind of fashion. Achievements and completed feats of strength need to look more epic in game. That's why we'll use advancement plaques for fancier looking RPG style plates that will pop up with glowing graphics and special sounds when an achievement is completed. This feels much more rewarding to the player. Of course, the Better Advancements mod will also make the advancement menu itself much larger, more legible, and generally easier to navigate. We'll also use the craftable item from the unique Atlas mod for a special fancy style world map. This map lets us navigate the world, place waypoints and landmarks on it, and just generally help us traverse through it. Horses are great mounts, but let's give them an upgrade. Using the callable horses mod will make it so our personal horse can be called. We can use a special key with this mod to call our horse from close by or further away for quick access and to just mount up easier. As for the items, we'll use 3 different mods that refer to their item quality and their place in the looting system. Firstly, we'll add the coloured borders to the inventory to the items to signify their rarity value and to make them stand out with the item borders mod. Secondly, we'll use the loot beams mod to add coloured beams above dropped items on the ground to also reference their value. The legendary tooltips mod will improve the item tooltips when hovering over them in our inventory in order to make them look more epic by giving them borders, better centering, shadows and effects, and adding matching item colour borders. Along with the loot beams mod, we'll also make our mod pack more multiplayer friendly. We'll do this by adding a much fairer looting system. Using the looter mod, we can have unique inventories for every single looted chest for each player on the server. This means that any open chests offer unique loot to you, meaning other players don't get the leftovers or second pickings. They get their own loot table of drops also, making dungeons more rewarding and fair for all. After all, we want to make our mod pack player friendly and prevent any loss of friendships. To get around areas of the world and points of interest quickly, we'll add a method of fast travelling. We'll do this with the Waystones mod, which is a mod that adds blocks that can be activated and linked together, letting us return to locations later through an existing linked waystone or using a warpstone or warp scroll. On-screen elements are important too for displaying information and improving our UI further. Firstly, the Traveler's Titles mod will display names of biomes or new dimensions on screen as RPG-style large-scale headings. These are customized customizable in terms of their text size, their color, location, and duration. And the best part is that they support custom biomes like the Twilight Forest mod that we're already using. This also works with our other mod, Waystones, to display names of locations which are binded to a waystone. Secondly, the You Died mod will display a Dark Souls inspired death screen after the player dies, with dark red text and a dark overlay. This makes our game more of a Souls-like feel and much more like Elden Ring than the vanilla death screen, which is pretty anticlimactic. Elden Ring of course has leveling and different skill tree like aspects to it. Now to achieve this I decided that mine and slash would be suitable. This is a mod that changes Minecraft into more of a hack and slash looter. With a talent tree you can acquire different specializations for the player and unlock different options in the skill tree using so-called skill points. With a special skill tree you can also unlock different spells which can be used with a spell hotbar, allowing up to 10 different spells. The magic skill tree is a completely different skill tree in the mod. Now we did of course feature other magic mods previously, but this is really our core magic mod because I just like how they're casted. The mod is inspired by Diablo for its gearing system, and it adds unique items with special affixes and stats to them, and it changes the gear progression. This is really the heart of our mod pack in terms of making it feel more like an RPG. And now it's time to show some gameplay playing our brand new Elden Ring mod pack. For this, I'll use a range of different worlds, some naturally generated worlds with custom terrain and generated structures, and some custom built player made maps with bosses that are manually spawned to serve as a combat showcase. Remember, if you enjoyed this video, give it a like and subscribe to the channel for the best Minecraft content on YouTube. And also follow me on Instagram at thebluecrusader for behind the scenes footage of these videos and any of my Minecraft mods that I'm making before they're released on this channel. Now, let's jump into the gameplay.